Welcome to Gurukul Lectures. In the ongoing series of Team Leadership and Development, today we will be highlighting on the group decision making. In the group decision making, decisions are not taken by individuals but by a group of members. So therefore, the group decision making is coming onto a consensus with the multiple people who have a different perspective to a particular problem. Making a choice and coming onto a consensus is a very difficult task because we have people who are demographically similar and we have few people who are demographically diverse. So people have their own story, they have their own designation, they have their own charges, they have their own nature. So coming onto a consensus is a very important aspect of a group decision making. Because sometimes arriving at a decision is a structured activity and sometimes it is an unstructured activity. There is a difference in the composition of the group, the nature of the groups, the structure of the groups, the purpose of the group, which makes it all the more challenging. So here what we have to talk about that there is a difference between the team, the teamwork, the self-managed teams, etc. So overall we can say that there are different types of decision making, like coming to a consensus mode, that is you have to basically here talk about to coming on to one particular solution by each and every member of the group. So if the majority of the people they agree to take a decision, so in a consensus mode they vote in a majority aspects. There are certain steps involved in a decision-making process like the diagnosis of the problem, developing the various alternatives, then evaluation of those alternatives, selecting the best, monitoring the decision-making. So basically the group size is different, their composition is different, the group consensus is different, and sometimes the people have a tendency to move on to their the decision making on a very risky note. So there are advantages, there are disadvantages of a group decision making. And let me give one comment that a group decision making is always better compared to an individual decision making, because in the individual decision making we have only one perspective, that is of the particular individual. Whereas in a group decision making we have so many perspectives coming together which gives us a lead, which gives us a way, which shows us the path that yes, this is the best decision making process. Although on a flip side, sometimes there is a lot of conflict which comes in a group decision making which can actually hinder the process. But in the normal course of the time, group decision making is better than an individual making activity. Now let me just highlight some issues relating to techniques of a group decision making. In these aspects, I would be highlighting on the various techniques which are well discussed in the literature. The first is your step ladder technique. Then we have a brainstorming. Then we have a nominal group technique. We have a Delphi technique. We have a consensus mapping technique. So we'll be taking these techniques one by one. So the first and the foremost technique as far as the group decision making process is concerned is a step ladder technique. Now in a gradual approach that manages the way members enters the group, the step ladder techniques combines the element of individual decision making, encourage all the members to contribute individually, the group members can influence them. The use of this technique definitely is to listen to the different point of views which are available, and the techniques work best in the people. Now basically the techniques develops as follows. Here expose the problem to all the members of the decision making group. So everyone will be apprised relating to the problem on which you have to take a decision. Then the problem and the possible solutions are discussed. So we start with a group of 2 members who shall discuss the problem, add a third member to the initial group and the later will have to present his own ideas upon and dwell on that particular aspect. Then we have the previously discussed about the three members have presented their ideas. So distinctively everything has to be emerged. Then we have to add the fourth member using the same mode which was previously explored and previously exposed, and once they enters the main group of individuals with the various ideas which are available. So this is how we move on as far as the step ladder technique is concerned. Now there are certain advantages of this particular technique, like all the members of the group are encouraged and they take the accountability. So interrupted timing of option is exposure, and the variety of solutions are provided, and the best solution, you move on to the best solution. So basically on the darker side of the step ladder technique, it does not work well if you talk about a larger group, or we can say when the members of the group is more than 7, you're not able to take this technique in a right perspective. So this is the biggest disadvantage of a step ladder approach, that if the group size is larger, you will not be able to take the well and a good decision making. Now the most important discussed technique in the existing literature as far as the group decision making process is concerned is a brainstorming. What do you mean by brainstorming? The brainstorming technique involves a group of people, maybe 5 to 10, sitting around a table and generating the ideas in the form of free association. Focus of the brainstorming technique is more on the generation of the ideas rather than evaluation of the ideas, and being that if a group large number of ideas can be generated, so it is likely that there will be a unique problem and a unique category here in the brainstorming, because you are focusing on generation of more ideas. Now the ideas are written on the blackboard with a piece of chalk so that everyone can see every idea. The leader of the group defines and explains the nature of the problem to the group, and some rules are followed. So basically here the ideas are generated. No idea is to be criticized. Definitely in a brainstorming session, every idea is welcome. So you will not have a critical or any kind of a negative perspective, or you will not criticize any of the idea which has been generated and given in the group. So some ideas are wild. However, no idea seems to be absurd. They might seem to be. So some of the widest and the wildest ideas have been basically, they have resulted into a very good solution. So here in this case, there is no inhibition about generating of the ideas, or pinpointing that this idea is bad or good, or any critical perspective in that regard. So the ideas that are too wild, and sometimes they are disregarded later on, but in the main frame they all are welcome, they all are taken. So the quantity is there, not the quality. The quality can always be judged at the end. So in the beginning of the brainstorming session, everyone is allowed to come up with the new ideas. So the generation of the ideas is what we are looking for here. And as we zero down to coming on to the consensus or taking a decision making, here the perspective is not on the quality but on the quantity. So the quality can definitely be judged at the end of the session, and the more ideas there are enhances and the best solutions will not escape. The participants, they are encouraged to improve or modify the other participants' suggestions also. So this is a very good the particular technique as far as the brainstorming is concerned. The system In this system, the ideas are visualized, they are discussed, they are suggested, and people, they talk to each other that this is how you can modify your idea, or maybe you have taken the practical view but you haven't taken the theoretical backdrop, or vice versa. And so this process of unrestricted thinking is a very star key feature of the brainstorming session. So it results into generation of some novel ideas, and which may not have been otherwise being taken care of. So the brainstorming technique is a very effective activity, and when the problem is comparatively or they are very specifically decided. So here the ideas are broken down into small parts. Each part is discussed separately at a time, and it is definitely a little time consuming activity, and it is quite possible that none of the ideas generated would be optimal. The process itself being democratic in nature, it creates a lot of interest among the subordinates, and also the wasted time can be minimized if the members of the group are chosen carefully, so the problem and the feel that their contribution towards the ideas generation will be substantial. This particular technique of brainstorming is used to encourage the creative thinking in the group of around 8 members. So the ideas is built around the lines. There are many ideas which are generated as possible. So there's a freewheeling and imaginative aspects. It's like a piggy bank which extends and combine the earlier ideas also. The old criticism of the other ideas. The process of this technique depends upon the members' ability to listen to others. So we here use it as a stimulus to spark some new ideas and feel free to express them. Further, even the practical ideas should also be encouraged. More number of ideas should be encouraged. Actually, higher quality ideas would be generated. Now, there are some advantages, the disadvantages of the brainstorming session. So let us highlight that. Here, the members would be enthusiastic, involved immensely, and it is definitely emotional also. There is a huge participation of the members, which is task oriented, and also a high relation orientation will be maintained, and there has been a sense of belongingness, and the final product is a team effort. So the members may fear that their ideas may be looked down by the others. This is the biggest disadvantage which the members feel as far as the brainstorming session is concerned. And sometimes because of this fear, their ideas and their creativity is killed. People may dominate the process of decision making. They always make a mark, or they want to make a mark in the decision making process. So some people are left behind. Their creativity is killed. They have the fears that their decisions are not all that good. So now coming on to the third technique as far as the group decision making is concerned, which is called as a nominal group technique. Now it was developed by Andre, and basically the members form the group and operate independently, generating the problem on their own, in silence and in writing. The members, they talk to each other so that a strong personality domination is avoided. So there is the individual creativity. The individuals silently list their ideas. They chart on at a time until all ideas are listed. Then a discussion is permitted and all the ideas are discussed. There is no criticism which is allowed, and only a written vote is taken, and they have a minimal interaction prior to making a decision. In the nominal group technique, it builds on the brainstorming discussion, the voting process at the end. Not only does each group vote, but each person is given an opportunity to also move on in the voting process for whichever decision or the option which they feel free and if it's the best choice. So depending upon the topic, a few different ways that you can use the nominal technique. So if the topic is more sensitive or controversial, you may also talk to your team members with a survey with the option to remain, unanimous, and otherwise this technique can be used during your meeting in any kind of a decision making. Here the members are brought together and they are familiarity or given some kind of a familiarity relating to a problem. They develop the solutions independently and write down on their various cards. They share their ideas with each other in a very structured format. All the members get an opportunity and a particular table format. So members, they ask the questions just to get a clarification during a brief session. So the members individually, they select the best alternative and inform through a secret ballot. Here, then after the secret ballot, the group decision is announced. There are some advantages of a nominal group technique. Here, all the members, they get the equal opportunity for the participation. The members can dominate the discussion. Decisions can be taken in the right time due to control of time, and the expertise of each member is definitely used independently. The problem and interpersonal problems are solved. And on the other side, if you discuss the disadvantages of a nominal group technique, the procedure which is adopted here is too rigid. The members, sometimes they feel frustrated. The members cannot have the interpersonal relations up cohesive net. It cannot be ensured because here the process is very frustrating, very limited, very rigid. So you cannot make the interpersonal relations here. And when you cannot make the good interpersonal relationship, the cohesiveness is surely not possible. Now moving on to the deliberations and discussion on the Delphi technique, which is another most important technique as far as the group decision making process is concerned. Here the members with the expertise and the relevant information concerning an issue are taken regarding that issue. The questionnaires are sent to the members who record their answers in writing. The group members, they do not have a face-to-face discussion. The replies which have been given by the members to the particular questionnaire which was sent, they are summarized and the feedback to them are sent for review. They are asked to make the decision in view of the additional information. So this process is repeated and then of course the decision making is made. So the technique is mostly used for the demand forecasting, project market trends, identifying the future prospects, the future state of finance, production, etc. So these are the famous areas in which the Delphi technique is used, in which the questionnaire is sent to the members, the replies are summarized and the feedback is sent for the review. So this process here, the group members are involved, their expertise involved, and definitely they take adequate time here. So there is, in this case, there is a written communication skills of the members who are involved and motivated for the effective summarization of their responses, like emails are used, voicemails are used, etc. So the problem and the related issue of face-to-face interaction can be reduced here. There's an efficient use of expert time, and definitely when you talk about the interpersonal problems, they are not at all here because they do not meet each other. The written replies are there on the emails, so there's a huge saving of time. Then of course the time is given for the analysis by the respondents, and they act together or they write their answers on mail, and eventually you're able to come on to the decision making. So acting together in a group setting benefit from the others. So sometimes the whole process is very cumbersome. If you see the darker side of it, it takes a lot of time because this renders sometimes ineffectiveness, and sometimes what they're supposed to answer, they are not answering that. So now moving on to the last part of this lecture, that is on the consensus mapping. In the consensus decision making, basically this technique aims to reach the agreement through collaboration, participation, etc. The group decisions made by the consensus, they seek the resolutions to all the group members and meet all their concerns. So the consensus decision making and the overall competitiveness here, it rather seeks to do what is best for the group. Here the perspective is on the group decision making rather than the individual decision making, because your perspective is to take the best decision and coming on to a consensus where all the members agree on a particular solution. So as far as the group is concerned, here each and every person is treated equally, and they solicit the input of all the participants. So making the decisions by the overall members, it is ideal and even desirable. Each and everyone is respected. They are conveyed in such a way that they are able to build a particular consensus, which is the beauty of this consensus mapping. And in an effort to please anyone, decision making, there is a common denominator but not produce the best outcomes. So developing a consensus does not promises the best results or the best outcomes. Each one of us must highlight this. So developing a consensus and is thus more difficult to achieve, and when there is an urgency, the significance of the resource limitation. So another way to think about the consensus is that in order to arrive at the group consensus, there's a majority opinion which holds much overall, give their choice, accept their choice, and while the group members may be with the proposal, they do not actually need to favor it about another choice. So what here is important is that all concerns are taken into the perspective, into the main frame. The decisions solicit the participants. Major decisions are basically on desirability and inviting everyone and coming on to the best consensus decisions or the outcomes which are possible. On the other side, this does not guarantee the best outcomes, but yes, people agree on a particular solution in this regard. So this is what is called as the consensus mapping method of a group decision making process.